Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Conversation Capital. Thank you so much for all the love and support we've been getting so far. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends about it. Tell your friends about it. It is the Conversation Capital. More importantly, please make sure that you share everything you want us to share on the channel with us. So make sure you leave a comment to say, this is who I'd like to see on the show and this is what I'd like to talk about. The Conversation Capital not only belongs to the ticket, but it belongs to you too. I have, would I say the brains behind the Conversation Capital?
Definitely.
The brains?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like I said, we were speaking earlier, every decision must go through Given.
Yes, everything must go through Given. So Given is our producer and director here at the Conversation Capital. We're having him on screen today because we often have...
first time.
For the first time.
Yes, and the beautiful footage that every single one of you love is because of him.
It's because of him. Given is definitely the
Thank
guy.
you.
The
Yes.
main-
Thank you.
Whenever
Thank
we're
you.
like, great quality, Ursula, I'm like, Given, here's a comment for you.
Yes.
Because he does it all. You know, he's definitely... Even the concept of the show is actually all
Yes.
Given. So this is the brains behind the show. And we brought him on because we often have these amazing conversations. I think Conversation Capital was birthed from the amazing conversations we would have, you know, and we just said, you know what, we need to get these things out on podcast or whatever. And I got a comment to say the show is so diverse, and that's because conversations are diverse, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
and conversations are a commodity in themselves, you know, because
Exactly.
they're so dynamic and they change your perspective on things and they teach you perspectives, you know, and so that's the crux behind Conversation Capital and what we're trying to do here. And so I said, you know, I need to get Given on screen. Bonga actually said we need to get Given on screen because of a conversation we had off air.
Yes.
And the conversation was basically around a commitment to church versus
to God.
to God.
Yes.
Ding, ding, ding. All the Christians just started logging off.
What intrigued me with Given's, and he'll go into it, what intrigued me with Given's philosophy on church or religion or Christianity is to say, I'm more committed to God than I am to the human being in front of me. And that also speaks to, he'll go deeply into this, but he spoke about how the pastor that really influenced this, or one of the pastors that influenced this, is to say, I want your message, you to believe the message when I'm not there, like without me, you know. So I thought it's an important conversation to have because people hold on to the church more than they do to God.
Sure.
And what happens to your relationship with God outside of church?
You're taking all of Given's sound bites.
That's how moved I was by that talk.
Yes, yeah. I remember that one. I remember that one.
Like, I think I would love to preface this, right, with saying, Guti, the church, contrary to popular belief today, has always been a very big part of specifically South Africa, and also Africa as a whole. So part of our joys and also part of our sorrows, because we know that a lot of the church was used to further enforce the oppression that we were under.
Sure.
And it's bittersweet because it was also used a lot to mobilize us to, you know, like you actually see it a lot with African Americans, how the context of being at church was how we gathered and planned against our oppressors. The same thing happened here.
Yes.
Right? We were able to gather a lot of the songs we had that kept us going and kept us hopeful and believing were put together
the
and
twofold
composed.
of that is heavy.
And
You understand
also,
what I mean?
He just reminds me of how some activists were protected by churches.
Exactly.
Or the whole about Desmond Tutu, cops wouldn't shoot if he's in front of the crowd. Or, you know, so it's such a duality. The same indoctrination, though we use it to mobilize. Some of it, the role that it plays, it's to protect us.
And I always want to bring back to, I think the heavy thing about like Africans and African spirituality is that like, it wasn't a distant thing to believe in God. Like Africans believe in God, right? And that's why the concept, I don't know, ultimately they're speaking of a God. And I think that, it wasn't something easy to reject because of how heavy religion is
We believe
to
in
black
a higher
people.
being, higher existence.
Where
We've always
like,
believed
like
in
whatever
that.
shape or form, and I don't have statistics on this, but for me, if I'm about to look at a group of people, if I'm going to assume that there's an atheist in the room, I'm going to look at the Caucasians like, it's probably y'all, because Havana died, you know, with black people and black families, where we're just so, I don't know, it's intrinsic, I'd say, to believe in like this higher power. And like I said, the stats aren't there, but that's just my personal experience. That, you know, we believe in a higher power.
You know, this actually, I was thinking of exactly what you're saying right now, but not to cut into what we actually want to talk about, right? But when you look at what's happening right now with NFTs and cryptocurrencies, it really teaches you about how the malicious people work. They take something that you've now begun to trust and they infiltrate that thing.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with NFTs. There's nothing wrong with Bitcoin. But how many people have had their money stolen, have been robbed through NFTs? Like there are scam after scam. We all loved, what's this Netflix hit from Korea? Squid Game.
Yes.
Everybody was like, up in arms with Squid Game, right? And then someone just thought, let me do a Squid Game NFT. And they did a Squid Game NFT, made over $2 million and disappeared because you had grown a love for it. So I think that's where our naivety comes when we trust things and let them in. And that's how the nefarious people infiltrate us. And I think that's what happened a lot, particularly with Christianity. Particularly with it.
I'd say, like you're saying, it's that trust part. I'd say with many religions, there was a time I did a radio interview around, Hokoma, and I got like 4 panelists of 4 different sangomas with different stories of how they had been abused by either their kobelas or relatives or dikobela. And it's important that we say it's once you put this trust in a human being that there's this gap too. And I can speak of many
even politicians,
pastors and that really take advantage. I mean, how many people do we have, pastors, court cases of like rape and sexual assault? It is heavy, you know, even in places where there's so much trust. I can think of somebody personally that there was so much trust, and when you hear, you're like, how?
Like there's even a part of you that's like, but how could you trust them
that much?
Yes.
But how could you not as well?
Like I remember, and I know this is the experience of many black South Africans, particularly if you go to church in the townships. I remember a pastor's church who I used to attend, and it was one of those where I was like, you know, when you're like the Asha, when you're like, I'm a brother here, right? And he used to say this a lot, and it took a while for it to click to me, Guti, this is not right. So he would preach and then get the church excited and then get to the end of his sermons and be like, I'm releasing your blessings, and I'm like, it really, and it was
our
something that was just you understand what I mean? So you are holding our blessings belong to you, they are with you. So
I can't say how, because we've all experienced, we're thinking, whether you've seen it on whatever channel, I don't want to say any channel names, but all these Christian channels, past Trace.
On
DSTV, you know, all those Christian channels where, you know, the wording is wrong. The wording is so bad, and it's like...
And the wording is not just bad, ne? It's also very intentional from their side. They know exactly what they're doing, some of them.
And that's the part, some of them that I feel like they all know. Kira.
No, they don't. So this is, there was a conversation we were having about just trashy men. And when I did a performance in Zim, and one of the people in the audience asked a question, like, do these men actually know? So here's the thing about the knowing part, right? There are people who intentionally go into churches and they know that they're taking advantage of people. They made the decision before they even became leadership or started a church this is what I'm here for. They knew what they were doing. Then there are those who have quite honestly been socialized into doing it. So they, you know, it's become normal. It's been normalized to them as this is the way it should be. So they genuinely believe this is how church should be done. You understand what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. So let me just give a brief background of my history and relationship with church. So I used to go to the church that I spoke about, right? And it was a black church, Ekasi. And I don't know how many townships have this, but there's a place, Esibiza Ngewelas, right? That's usually the place where it's like town. So back home, this is how it's structured. It's town, then Ikasi, and then there's like a river that separates Ikasi from the other side. That's why we call it Ewelasi, because you fall over the river, right? Yeah, and that's like where the poorest people usually stay in those areas,
okay.
right? Yeah, so that's where my pastor ended up building a church. Of which, to be quite honest with you, if I go back and give an account of my time spent in his church, there I can quite honestly say that there's a lot of good that came out of it than bad. Like he wasn't him. I would say he's one of those. When he did things that were dodge, he wasn't going into a room and planning and strategizing. Okay, then I'll do this. I truly do believe that he genuinely believed at the time that's how it should be done. He was convinced that that's how it should be done.
Well, pastor's appreciation.
You understand what I mean? So I'll make an example. So this dude had built a church, Ewelas, right? And he knows the community that he is serving. Out of the blue, he comes and has a vision that he needs to drive a Merc. His house is not even Merc material. You understand what I mean?
No shade to anybody who's...
No, but like I think from a financial perspective, that's not a good idea. I think anyone who understands how finances work, you're straining yourself. Whereas if you're not maintaining a home that's worthy of a Merc, there was no garage at his house, mind you.
Yeah, where's the Merc gonna sit?
You understand what I mean? All of a sudden, there's a vision from God, and the thing for me was. If you, for example, look, and I know there's going to be a whole conversations about the authenticity of the Bible. Unfortunately, that's not what we're covering today. But there's a thing that's in the biblical literature where Paul says, I had the right. You cannot muzzle an ox. You have to open it so that as it works, it's able to feed on the grass or whatever is on the ground for it to eat. So he's saying, I had the right that in my labor I should receive something from you, but I chose not to, so as to teach you a principle. There was something I need. That's why Paul is known as the apostle who made tents. So because his mission was to relieve you of the burden so that you'd focus, so that you'd focus on the message. You understand? Yeah. So unfortunately, that's not what a lot
This is so heavy because when there's a visiting pastor, who orderiwa dijo,
yes,
kamle o mo accommodate,
yes.
This is getting sticky.
Yeah, no, it is.
This is out of context, but also at work. I'm always like, when there's a person from overseas coming, our bigger branches, I'm like, why are we shaking? Why? But yeah.
Unless they're contributors, because this is...
No, this is part of our company. Just a different branch.
Oh.
Just a senior person from a different country in our huge company.
Bonga, but when somebody walks into your home, this is aside from the...
This is their home as well. In
yes.
Anyway,
yeah,
we digress.
Exactly. Yeah, I actually have I've listened to such a beautiful teaching on that, particularly with a wife who had kept plates, the good plates, kept them away. And she bought them and then she put them away. And the husband noticed that she only takes them out when guests arrive.
Yeah.
And then he's like, never again.
Yes.
From now on, you do not treat guests better than you treat us.
Yes.
Those good plates must come out with us.
And the black families do that a lot.
You do not treat guests better than you treat us.
I live alone, but here in this house, I've got plates for guests and plates for myself.
You understand? But that also is a bit different because you're doing it with yourself. Yes. You're alone. Because if the charity, think about it this way. If the standard for us is here, when the guests walk in, that's the standard.
Okay.
The good plates are the standard.
Ooh. Hey guys, we're not talking about this now. But
Yes.
we are not talking about this. So we are not gonna go back to church and whatever. But you're so right, because even now I keep talking about being in my final year of my 20s. But really, being in my final year of my 20s, I've learned so much that I have loved so vigorously other people more than myself than I've ever experienced. Ursula has never experienced the amount of love she's given to other people, you know, and only now I'm like, no, I want to experience what it is to serve myself.
Exactly.
You know, and without, it's a bit of a tricky one, without, you know, this conceited self-serving behavior, but where I can award myself a break, where I can award myself time out, and I can award myself a massage by myself. Not because, you know, now it's a gift, and so now I'm also being dragged along to this gift. Okay, it's a massage, you know. But to really be like, oh, I'm tensed out, Ursula, go for a massage. Gilly one, you know. Only now I'm experiencing what it is to just love myself,
love on you,
know,
exactly.
love on me and dote on me and call myself beautiful, you know. And it's so weird that it's taken such a lot. But like you're saying, when the standard is here for yourself, then when people enter into your space,
that's the
standard. It's not that it's this thing that you have to put on a show. It's because massage, dinner,
if this is a cabbage house,
Exactly.
The problem is you for not understanding and accepting the fact that this is where I am right now. Right? Speak blessings into this home and then leave, so that the next time you come here,
you can find
I can
a piece
take out
of
the rations.
Honestly.
You understand?
Hey, a piece of something.
So this actually ties very well into exactly what we're speaking of, because I've often heard my fiance say that when we met, the one thing she liked saying is that she was amazed at the fact that I'm a Christian guy who's so committed to God, and at the same time I'm fun to be with, right? And and a lot of Christian girls actually say that they struggle to meet just cool Christian men who aren't so committed to the church that it just feels like they disappear into the church. So I feel like that's what tends to happen. When men serve, they serve. Like when men have decided that I'm going to serve here, they will die there, right? We have a very, very big capacity for servitude. But now the thing is this, I have to decide that this is worthy of my service, right? So you often find that it is men, even though there are few men in church, those who have decided that they've committed, like they will carry the pastor's Bible, they will literally disappear. Even the pastors themselves, they will disappear from their families. One tragic story that I've heard of a minister who he went out and saved the world, and at his deathbed, his son's final words were, "I wish my dad had had enough passion for me as he did for these strangers that he preached the gospel to." You understand what I mean? So the father couldn't translate the effort that he put into the church, into his family, particularly his son. You understand what I mean? So this is quite honestly, we're definitely not going to have the time to expand on everything. It's one of those topics that have a lot of branches, to be quite honest. But I was getting into my journey, right, into the church. So I was at this church, and this was my context. This was my relationship with church. So someone who releases your blessings. I remember he once invited an obnoxious pastor. Obnoxious. The type of person who will tell you that when I go to an event, I sit in my car and I tell the security that I'm not the driver who's driving him in the vehicle will have to tell security that when security says this car can't go in, they'll say the problem is not us. We can get out. The problem is who we're carrying. And he's saying that with a chest. Like, I'm not the person who gets out and walks into an event to preach. You understand what I mean? That guy, I promise you guys, like I literally, my mind clicked. I wasn't hypnotized, I wasn't anything, but he almost got me to throw my phone on the floor and give it to him with yes, bah. I was this close.
What do you mean, like you were trusting of him?
He wanted to give.
Oh, is it?
Like, it was not, I would love to say I was hypnotized, but the music, I wish. Yeah, music generally does. I mean, and there are churches that use a form of hypnotism.
Deliberate,
Yeah, because I mean, Nati were like we're like dogs to a certain extent, though. It's just we are able to break out of it at will. But like we do have those cues, like, you know, reward, action, reward. So then you just keep doing that action. Then you fall into a routine. Then you end up falling into a routine. So that was my context of church, right? Where the pastor was literally everything. He could release blessings. He giving to the church was such a big thing that you hardly, especially tithing. Tithing was spoken of more as if you don't, then beware, because these things in your life will not work. It is because you are not tithing.
So, you know, just fast forward then to this pastor is, you know, at this point, like hypnotizing.
Yeah.
Is hypnotizing you, and you're feeling so, you know, engulfed in this community that you're serving part of. You're an usher. How do you get to this place now where you're saying, what was the moment where you were like, this is actually not for me?
It definitely wasn't a moment. It was a journey. So in 2009, a friend of mine literally gave me a CD. It's like, listen to this guy. Didn't give me a lot of context. I think he just felt that he wouldn't be able to explain it and expand on it as well as the guy does in the. So it was the time when we were still listening to CDs. A lot of sermons and music was just in track order. So this guy had in there like probably about 19 teachings, which were at least an hour long per track.
Sure, that's commitment.
Yeah. So that's where my journey began, where I met the minister Obama was talking about earlier, Curry Blake. So interestingly enough, actually, just for interest's sake, the ministry is called John J. The current minister is Curry Blake. So he took over. There was a huge gap between him and the previous overseer, the founder. His name was John G. Lake. So interesting fact, the churches that we know in South Africa as AFM were started by him. And he actually even helped form, I don't know what exactly did he do, but I know that he had some kind of input in building our constitution and helped with a number of plagues around the country. So fast forwarding so I listened to his material quite a lot, and that's where he began challenging what churches do generally. So they call them sacred cows. So things like, you know, if you don't tithe, this is what's going to happen in your life. If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. And he really started opening up my eyes up to, you know, there's a lot I could get into, but I think what's relevant right now is the fact that he taught me about how to, because when he taught things, he wasn't one verse and then get into his sermon and he's just gone, you know, he's getting everybody excited.
From zero to hero.
You know what I mean?
You know those sermons. Like, huh?
Like his entire teaching, he's here. You literally listening, and he tells you stories and gives you context. So his big thing was, do not take my word for it. That was his big thing. Do not take, in other words, listen to me with scrutiny. Until you're able to go through the word and verify it yourself and it becomes your truth, then you move with it. And then as you move with it, you start seeing the results and the change in your life. Then you solidify it as being the true word of God. So don't just hear it because because there are people who literally, because this minister said it, it's the truth. Which is another thing. It brings me to another thing. You know, we can blame church leaders as much as we can, and they do take a lot of blame because of the positions that they're in. They're very privileged. They have great influence. And I personally feel, that there are a lot of, because of the power that they hold, a lot of the problems we have with our baby boomer parents can just be solved on the pulpit. You know what I mean? Some of the traumas that our parents put us through, honestly, like just conversations that pass, and unfortunately, because of here in South Africa, churches are full of mothers and women and girls. The messages are geared towards their favor rather than to, rebuke them, you know? Yeah, so the thing is, I really went on a very big journey of learning to, the thing I was actually getting to was the fact that we have to put the blame of the church and people within church not wanting to do the work of studying the word themselves, of not wanting to own their relationship with Christ. And to be quite honest, if a church has 1,000 people, I promise you that 990 something of them only have a relationship with the word when they are at church. Only ever have a relationship with God on that Sunday. They don't take, for me, I remember I was very young when I started doing this and having this mentality. Sunday was not the day when I went to see God. It had nothing to do with him. It had everything to do with the people, right? Because don't forsake the gathering of the saints, right? Let's not forsake the gathering with each other, where we come together and fellowship and remember Christ. But what we do is we come together to be with the Lord. What were you doing Monday to Saturday? That was your intimate
encounter.
time. Exactly.
Encounter that you're going to have in the house of the Lord.
Exactly. So that's what it became for me. So I moved a lot into the understanding that my relationship with God is very intimate. It is my relationship with him. There are many things that as I continue to grow, like we were talking about earlier, as I continue to grow and understand the word, there are some things that you will understand like this now. And then as you grow, you have more revelation. That's a journey. That's what a relationship does. Whereas there is the easy part, which we love as humans. Where things become just a pattern, right? It's a pattern of I go to church, I sit at the back, I get greeted with respect, which is another thing that we crave quite a lot.
Sure. Or even for me, not necessarily I sit at the back, but I'm involved and I'm busy and that commitment that I need to, I've also many times had to take a step back and be like, whoa, don't fall into that.
Yeah.
That's what you're not going to do again in your life, But
I was actually just about to say that there are some people who unwittingly, they actually serve to cover and fill some kind of gap within themselves. Rather than
without saying my name, you said my name.
No.
No, that really is me, and I know exactly where you end up like just going through the motions of what you're doing because it's the right thing to do, and but you're not really. There's so many things to be said about that. But we do need to come towards an end, and I think ultimately we're not shoving any opinions down anybody's throat.
Definitely.
This is Given's opinion to say be committed to God and learning and understanding God, other than a church or any other institution or facility that because that's really where the abuse starts.
Yes.
Where this person has so much power over you. And I think I'll forever just be an advocate against that. I feel really passionately around people using spirituality because, and especially like you had mentioned, that Iwelas is the poverty stricken, and they come to people that are desperate.
Exactly.
And that's the key.
To these institutions for hope.
Yes, because
they pry on that.
People don't go because they're okay. People go because they're desperate. People go because, and then it's in that desperation that so much abuse happens. So much abuse happens. And like I said, I want to take it to every institution.
Yes.
Every institution can be challenged as to how much abuse happens in these institutions. People being taken advantage of financially, sexually, mentally, emotionally, where week to week, actually, you actually think about that one day that you're going to spend in this institution. And it's terrible. It's something that shouldn't be happening. And then people opt just to be like, actually, I'm not even going to try this pursuit of a higher power.
Yeah.
I'm not even...
The damage.
Yeah, the damage
that
it does.
To people's belief for years.
Yes, people's faith and faith aside, just trusting.
Yeah.
People become very mistrusting and untrusting. Trust issues.
Yeah, but I need trust issues.
Trust issue.
Yeah.
And I think with all individuals, we'll always struggle. Dealing with individuals is very difficult. But in a place where you've put yourself in the position to say, come to this space for a sort of solitude or refuge rather, and then to abuse and take advantage of people in those spaces. That's dark.
And especially when you go in knowing and intentional.
And this is the part that we were talking about, the part of knowing. And I hear what you were saying with some of them don't even know that they're doing it. It just gets passed on as a teaching that this is, I'll always go back to the statement, pastor's appreciation. I mean, I don't think anybody intentionally thinks it's some dark thing that they're doing. But that's the habit that they get into, and they're taught that way. And there was a country. I hate that I'm forgetting this. I think it's Paul Gikama. I could be very wrong. Sorry, you guys can. But he's abolished all these churches without pastors, without theology degrees.
Okay.
He said, if you want to be a pastor, go study. And then when you say you are, then we know that we are speaking from a place of knowledge, not this thing oba ordained di karakara ke ya batho ba 14 now or whatever, know. And I think that already is the first layer to mitigate some kind of abuse.
But you know what's the thing, right? Unfortunately, that's not going to solve the problem. So the problem, so the way I interpret that is, what he's trying to do is limit the barrier to entry, because that's what happens kind of like in golf. The reason why golf is so expensive, it's not because golf is in itself an expensive sport. Sport is expensive, but not as expensive as golf actually is. So golf traditionally is the place where the Uber come and mingle and network and talk business. So the Uber do not want a middle class Ursula to come and infiltrate them. They want to know that when I come here, I know that I'm automatically meeting. So they want a golf round to cost 20,000 Rand. They want to pay 20,000 Rand to play just 4 balls. It makes sense to them because then it filters who can actually come.
Access.
Exactly. So the thing about the problem with church, starting a church, the barrier to entry is very low. I mean, there are people who have gifts, right? And I mean, if the thing, I mean, I remember sitting in a kitchen of a friend, and this dude walks in. You can see he's those very enthusiastic about the church kind of guys, and he's listening to the way I speak, and he's like, "I think you're called." I can promise you now that he's just listening to how well I speak English and how well articulated I am, and he thinks I can lead a church. God hasn't told me nothing about leading a church, and I know there's that charismatic people who speak well, who are able, the ones who would say you'd make a good public speaker. Those are the people that people say, I think you're called to lead a church. Nothing, low barrier to entry.
Sure, low barrier
Very low barrier to entry.
You just need a tree. In South Africa, you just need a tree. So if I will be like Craig and that.
And because people are going to appeal to that, it's going to seem like he's right.
Yes.
Because you will get a following. People will respond to your charismatic nature, or your ability to address them.
Exactly.
So guys, that is the very end of the Conversation Capital, this episode of the Conversation Capital. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Let us know what's on your mind. I've realized people run to the DMs to comment. Have you experienced that?
No.
So leave the comment on this page right here on YouTube. Leave it here. Don't go to my DMs on Instagram. I love you guys still, but leave the comment here on YouTube. And make sure you tell all your loved ones and friends about it. Given, thank you so much. I can't even say thank you so much for joining us, because you're part of the team and he's actually always here.
Yep.
This is our guy.
Okay.
But just make sure that you let us know what you want us to talk about right now and in the future, and who you want us to speak to. For now though, goodbye and God bless.